Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. We are again thankful that Yah has brought us here this morning to worship Him. This morning, our subject is the Spirits of Cokobeh. The Spirits of Cokobeh. Perhaps you're not familiar with Cokobeh, but as a young man growing up, that spittle that came out of frogs was referred to as Cokobeh, and you wouldn't want the spit of the frogs to get on you, because there is a legend that it even brings leprosy. And we have found out that cocoa venom is a potent neurotoxin that some frogs, particularly in Brazil and places like that, they're poisonous, and you don't want that on you. And so in the context within which we speak today, we're talking about the many bishops and the priests and the pastors who carry this Cokobeh doctrine. And it is caused by the expedient twisting of hermeneutics to fit their denominational creeds. So we want to look at that this morning. So the subject is the spirits of Cokobeh. So turn with me to the book of Revelation, Chizayon, the same chapter that was read earlier, 16, and we're going to begin at verse 12. Verse 12, and the word says, and the sixth messenger poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, in order to prepare the way of the sovereigns from the east. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits as frogs, Cokobeh. For they are spirits of demons, doing signs which go out to the sovereigns of the entire world to gather them to the battle of the great day of Yahweh the Almighty. See, I am coming as a thief. Blessed is he who is staying awake and guarding his garments, lest he walk naked and they see a shame. The spirits of Cokobeh. John here, Yohanan, wants you to know that in the last days, there are going to be spirits coming out of the mouths of the dragon. We know who the dragon is, that the dragon is none other than Satan himself. We can read that in Revelation chapter 12. That's the dragon. We see this also in Revelation chapter 13. Unclean spirit. And there's also a spirit coming out of what? What we would call the false prophet. Unclean spirits like frogs. These are the last days. And one of the things you need to know about frogs is that they catch their prey with their tongues. So when John here is letting you know that the demons that are coming out of their mouth is the things that they speak, these demons coming out of the mouth of the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast. That's the beast in Revelation chapter 13, and also out of the mouth of the false prophets. So it's important that we look at these things and identify them so that we don't get deceived by anyone. So turn with me to Revelation chapter 12. And we see here in Revelation 12, and a great sign was seen in heaven, a woman clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. We're talking here, the woman here is Israel, to give birth to the man-child. The man-child is Yeshua. That's the woman, because in prophecy, a woman is symbolic of the temple or the church. In Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 2, we read that I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and a delicate woman. So we see here, and the word says in verse 3 of chapter 12, Revelation, and another sign was seen in heaven, a great fiery red dragon. So here is the red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his head. So we know this is Satan, who was trying to kill the man-child. He tried it with Herod's when the man-child had to flee all the way to Egypt to escape him. So that's one of the ways in which he tried to kill the man-child. So we know who the dragon is. And so if we go to Revelation chapter 13, and we read, and I stood at the sand, on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his head a name of blasphemy. So this is the beast that has 7 heads, and the 7 heads are 7 mountain. They are mountain kingdom. There's 7 kingdoms. So it's a composite beast. And all we have to do is to look at these things historically and look at all the empires that have reigned from time. So we start with Egypt. Egypt was the first. And then we have the Assyrian Empire. Then we have the Babylonian Empire. Then we have the Medes and the Persian. Then we have the Grecian Empire. Then we have the Roman Empire. And the last one was the Ottoman Empire. So there are 7. And he's telling us that this beast is a composite beast having 7 heads and 10 horns. Horns in prophecy are powers. And these are the powers that have not yet received their crowns, because when this beast rises up out of the sea, meaning out of a multitude of people, that's what Revelation 17 and verse 15 says. Water means a multitude of people. So that's the beast. So he's telling us the beast, this is the Antichrist beast. When he comes, he's going to speak how? He's going to speak, and demons are going to come out of his mouth, and the dragon is going to speak. So we want to know who is the false prophet. That's important, because the false prophet is the one who leads the people towards worship of the first beast, according to Revelation chapter 13. So we then have to go back to Revelation chapter 12. And in Revelation chapter 12, we read in verse 9 that the great dragon was thrown down that serpent old called the devil. So we establish again that this is Satan. He's the devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. He was thrown down to the earth. I want you to hold that in your mind. He was thrown down to the earth. Now, many people would conclude that he was thrown out into the generic earth. And that's the view that they hold. But we want to use this as a periscope to look at this thing in a kind of forensic way, so we see clearly what is being said. Let me read it again for emphasis. And the great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. He was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. That's the angel. He took 1/3 of the angel. And I heard a loud voice saying in the heaven, now have come the deliverance of the power of the reign of Elohim and the authority of his Messiah, for the accuser of the brothers, who accused them before Elohim day and night, has been thrown down. Now, we know that the church then, the church of the Middle Age and subsequently the church of the Reformation period, was under attack by Satan through the form of the Catholic Church, the Inquisition, and so on and so forth. And they wanted to flee from the persecution. The church of the Reformation period, which would have been the church of Sardis in Revelation chapter 3. So the thing we have to look at here is that it says that the woman, verse 14 of the same passage, chapter 12, that's the church, the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, keep that in your mind also, to fly into the wilderness to a place where she was nourished for a time and times and after time from the presence of the serpent. So serpent, Satan, is persecuting the church through the Catholic Church and through Rome. The church then fled, the Lollards, the Pilgrims, the Plymouth Brothers, or the Plymouth Brethren, all these people from Holland, from Germany, they fled. And it says that the woman was given wings like eagle. So watch where we're going with this. And out of his mouth the serpent spewed water like river. So we know water is people. He's sending people after them to chase them, to make sure that they don't get away from him. And the earth, remember, the devil was thrown down to the earth. This time it says, and the earth helped the woman. The earth helped the persecuting church that was fleeing. They were fleeing from Europe. So when we put this together, the woman, the church, was helped by this eagle wings and the earth. And so the question you have to ask yourself, the church that left Europe, where did they go? And who took them in? The Protestant who protested, that's what Protestant mean, to protest. They left Europe, they left England, and they came here. And where did they come? They came to America. And so it is appropriate to say that this false prophet is none other than Protestant America. And so we're going to see this in verse 11. Verse 11 of chapter 13 now of Revelation, it says that, and I saw another beast coming out of the earth. Remember, the first beast came out of the sea. This beast came out of the earth, meaning at the time that the people came here, it was a sparsely populated place. It was not the 330 million people that it has now. There was no more than about 3 million people at that time. It was sparsely populated out of the earth. And so they came here and the earth took them in and helped them. This earth with eagle's wings. And as you well know, America has the bald eagle as a symbol. And so we're pointing out, or John wants you to know that this is the false prophet. And he said, in the end time, in the now time, coming out of the mouth of the false prophet is Cokobeh. That's what you need to understand that this is what is happening. And the word says this second beast, this earth beast, is the one that is going to lead the people to worship the first beast, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life. That's kind of serious. And so as we look at that, our minds are drawn back to that time in Egypt, Mitzrayim. Why? Because we remember during the Exodus back in Egypt, you better come with me there. That's Shemot, and we're going to look at chapter 8. Why will we look at chapter 8? Because there was a plague of frogs at that time in the Exodus. And so we're looking at Exodus chapter 8. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, thus saith Yahweh, let my people go so that they serve me." It is interesting that Pharaoh was holding Yah's people in slavery, even as this earth beast has held us well over 400 years in slavery, and seemingly its tentacles are still on Yah's people and will not let them go, because we don't seem to have a Moshe. We don't seem to have a Moses. And that's why the chains may have been removed from the from the ankles, but the chains have now been put on the minds of the people. And so they're still in slavery, but they do not know it yet. And so perhaps the most innocuous and yet the most truculent of all the tribes of the earth that I'm speaking to this morning is those who live in the forest region of denominational creeds, to whom it seems like it is an advanced civilization, not knowing that they are dwelling in the woods of ignorance. That's the kind of people that we're dealing with. And so Moses was told to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. But if you refuse to let them go, see, I'm smiting your borders with frogs, and the rivers said, swarm with frogs. So the rivers, the frogs would come out of the Nile. That's what happened there. And whatever happened then physically in ancient time will happen again in the end time, only in a spiritual way. So the frogs there that came out of the Nile, the Bible tells us that when we see the Euphrates River that runs through Babylon, that runs through Iraq, when it's drying up, it is at this time that the frogs will appear again. So let's read on. But if you refuse to let them go, see, I am smiting all your borders with frogs, and the river shall swarm with frogs, which shall go up and shall come into your house and into your bedroom and on your bed and into the houses of your servants and on your people and into your ovens and into your kneading bowls. It is interesting, you know, as I look at this, that in your ovens, can you imagine having roast frogs? And interesting, you know, anciently, one of the coat of arms of France was a frog. And perhaps, you know, that's why they eat spring chicken. But we'll just leave that there. It's just a thought, but that was on their coat of arms. And so here in Egypt, we see the frogs coming out. But what's interesting, it says that when the frogs appeared, the magicians of Egypt, what did they do? Well, let's read it in verse 7. And the magicians did so. Well, let's read verse 6. So Aaron stretched out his rod across the waters of Mitzrayim, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Mitzrayim, that's Egypt. And the magicians did so, and Paul spoke about these magicians, Jannes and Jambres. So with their magic, and brought up frogs on the land of Mizraim. What is it that I am saying? The Bible says that in the last day, these people with frogs in their mouth, they're going to do signs of wonders. They're going to do it. But it's false, just like it was here. Whatever Moses did, they did too. Let's read it. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aaron and said, "Pray to Yahweh to take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I shall let thy people go." So, and Moses did pray. But the word says, and verse 15, and Pharaoh saw that there was relief. He hardened his heart and did not listen to them as Yahweh had said. Verse 16, and Yahweh said to Moshe, "Say to Aaron, stretch out thy rod and strike the dust of the land so that it become gnats," or in some Bibles it says lice, "in all the land of Mitzrayim." And they did so, and Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and struck the dust of the earth, and it became gnats on man and beast, and the dust of the land became gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magician did similarly with their magic to bring forth none, but they were unable, and there were gnats on man and beast. So you understand that the frog, the plague of frog, was the last time the magicians were able to replicate what was going on. Thereafter, this is the end of Yah. Are you with me? This is the end of Yah. And so the magicians themselves, in fact, said that when they couldn't do it now, they said, this is the finger of Yah. So we see what was happening in Egypt, and it was happening at a time of the great Exodus. The great Exodus. So the point I want to make also is that there is an exodus taking place, not a physical exodus, but a spiritual exodus, and this is the real exodus. Come with me to Jeremiah chapter 16. Jeremiah chapter 16. Most people today that attend church don't even comprehend that there is an exodus taking place because it's not physical, so they can't see it. Verse 14, therefore, see, the days are coming. What days? Nowadays, declares Yahweh, when it is no longer said that Yahweh lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of Mitzrayim. But Yahweh lives, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands where he had driven them, for I shall bring them back into the land I gave their fathers. See, I am sending for many fishermen, declares Yahweh, and they shall fish them. And after that I shall send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rock. So this second Exodus is not a physical exodus. It's a spiritual exodus where people are coming out of bondage, whether that's psychological, social, or otherwise. They're coming out, and the deliverer here is greater than Moses. This is Yeshua, but it is taking place. People are becoming aware of who they are now. And so therefore, when he talks about Israel, he's not talking about a geographical Israel. He's not talking about a group of people, Khazar, who were taken from Europe and brought under the British rule from 1917 to 48 and said the state of Israel. He's talking about the Israel of Yah that is found in Galatians 6 and verse 16. That means it's not an Israel where you're born in the land. It is an Israel that accepts Yeshua. And if you being Yeshua, you are Abraham's seed. And so the whole world seemingly are confused, believing that the people there now, most of which are Khazars, the word said. Moses says they're Gentiles, Hebrew-speaking Gentile. But people believe that they are the Israel that Yah is talking about, many of which don't even accept the Messiah. And so the Messiah is coming for his people, and there are people who don't accept him, and you ignorantly think that is coming for them. It doesn't make sense. So the point I want to make here, though, is that there is an exodus. And as the troubadour from Trenchtown says, it is the movement of Yah's people. So we need to understand that. So now that we have understood that there is an exodus and there is a movement of Yah's people, and what is happening now is only what happened then. And we know now through the media and else, other things, that the Euphrates is drying up. And that's why John wants you to know that when you see the physical Euphrates that runs through Babylon is drying up, then you know that spiritualism and the demons are going to increase tremendously by way of, we see the society how people are lying, and people go to court and lying judges are asking other liars to tell them the truth. It is quite ironic, isn't it? But this is what the society is into. And so we are driven now, historically, we're driven to look at the book of Isaiah. The book of Isaiah. Come with me, because to understand this, we've got to look at how ancient Babylon was destroyed. Because what happened in ancient Babylon will happen in Mr. Babylon. And so we need to understand that. Come with me to the book of Yeshayahu, that's Isaiah, and we're going to dilate upon chapter 44. But now, hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Yisrael, whom I have. Thus saith Yahweh, who made you and formed you from the womb, who helps you. Do not fear, O Jacob, my servant, and Yeshua, whom I have chosen. So, skip over to verse 26 of the same passage. Confirming the word of his servant and completing the counsel of his messengers, who says of Jerusalem, be inhabited, and of the cities of Yehuda, they shall be rebuilt, and her ruins raised up by me. Who is saying to the deep, be dry, and your rivers I dry up? Who is saying of Koresh? In your Bible it says Cyrus. He is my shepherd, and he completes all my pleasures, even saying to Jerusalem, let her be built, and to the Echo, that's a temple, let her foundation be laid. Let's hold it there, and let us extrapolate from this what is being said. This is Isaiah the prophet, the royal prophet, is writing. And he's writing round about the year, 700. That's when he's writing. And he's writing 150 years before King Cyrus was born. But Yah names Cyrus 150 years before he was born and saying Cyrus is a king who is going to liberate my people from Babylon and make sure they go back and build the temple. This is quite interesting. The man is not yet born. 150 years from that, Yah is writing through the prophet Isaiah and saying, Cyrus, and in fact, at that time, the Medo-Persian Empire, today's Iran, was not even a force then. So to read this at the time that Isaiah is writing it, it would seem almost foolish to think that could happen. But we know that Cyrus, King Cyrus, the Persian emperor, took Babylon and he captured Babylon in the 539 BC on the 12th of October. So on the 12th of this year, October, would be a memorial of the capture of Babylon. Now understand why I have gone this route to explain what is happening in Revelation. We know historically that Cyrus or Koresh took Babylon by way of diverting the Euphrates River and draining it into a canal. There were two gates underneath the city that stopped the flow of water, that nobody could come up through Babylon, which made Babylon impregnable. The walls were thick, on which the hanging garden were built for Nebuchadnezzar's wife. And so this city was impregnable. You just couldn't get in to Babylon. But 150 years before that, before the man was actually born, Yah wrote through the prophet and saying, I'm going to open the gates underneath the Euphrates, and I'm going to let him through so he will scale the walls of Babylon. So when you see the Euphrates being dried up today, you know that Mr. Babylon is about to fall. In order to understand the book of Revelation, you've got to understand or have a good grasp of the Old Testament. And that's what we're doing here. What happened in Babylon is going to happen to Mr. Babylon. So those of us whose eyes are being opened, when we look and we read the news and we see the TV telling us that Euphrates River that runs all the way through Babylon is now drying up. Remember, I said earlier, the frogs came out of the Nile. Now the frogs are coming up out of the Euphrates. Frogs they love that moist place. Marshes, don't they? Rivers. That's what is happening spiritually. But many people are not understanding what happened then and what is about to happen. So obviously, we need, therefore, to take a look at the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 5. So let's look at Daniel chapter 5. Because at the time, Daniel was in Babylon. Daniel was one of those that were taken, along with Ezekiel, to Babylon during the captivity. And he was down there. And the night that Babylon was taken, that 12th day of October 539 BC, it says that Belshazzar the sovereign was partying. He was having a party with his lords and his ladies. Let's read it. Belshazzar the sovereign made a great feast for 1,000 of his great men and drank wine in the presence of 1,000. Did you hear me? While tasting the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring out the gold and the silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the Echo, that's the temple, which had been in Jerusalem, and the sovereign and his great men, his wives, and his concubines could drink from them. This is Belshazzar. Nebuchadnezzar is really not his father. More like his grandfather. But Nebuchadnezzar was his father. But the point made here is that while Babylon is fallen, is partying. While the people today are having a good time, it is then that Babylon will fall, even in the night. Not necessarily a night in terms of how we know night, but night in terms of the darkness that's in the land. The people are more taken into entertainment. And what Daniel and John, Yohanan, is letting you know that Babylon will fall while people are enjoying themselves. Yeshua himself said it, that the people will be given and taken in marriage. And they will be shopping and doing all kind of things, taking and no notice of what is going on. It is at that time when they say it is peace and safety. He said it's sudden destruction. And he says that he was drinking wine out of the vessel. Now understand, the vessels that he was drinking out of are the vessels that Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the Jerusalem temple that Solomon built. These were holy vessels that were prepared for the feast days and so on and so forth. And Nebuchadnezzar had put them in his storehouse, but this man, Nebuchadnezzar here, a little tipsy, along with his inebriated lords and ladies, he poured wine in these vessels. Now understand, the vessels here in the spiritual realm are the people. Or today's context are the people. And the wine that is being poured into them is the wine that we read in Revelation chapter 17. False doctrine pour into them. And it angered Yah so much that he began writing on the wall, according to Daniel chapter 5. But the people could not read the writing. Meeny, tickle or parson. You have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. So these spirits, these demons that comes out of the dragon, out of the beast, the mouth of the beast, and how the false prophet, you got to be careful. The word says, then they brought the gold vessels and had been taken from the temple in Jerusalem, and they began to pour. Can you imagine clean people, decent people? And this is what we talked about earlier. These are decent people, people who knows morals and they know ethics. But ignorantly, they find themselves in an environment where somebody else who doesn't share the same ethics as they do is teaching them. A man who will not treat you right, he will never teach you right. We need to understand it. And so they're drinking from these vessels. And the word says at that moment, at what moment? At the same moment that they messed with the people of Yah, the fingers of a man, a bloodless hand, appeared to and wrote opposite the lampstand of the plaza so they could see. On the wall and the sovereign place, and the sovereign saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the sovereign's color changed. The word says Belshazzar's complexion changed. And by the end of it, there was no improvement in his complexion. So that the joints of his hips were loose and his knees knocked against each other. We call that trembling. His knees were applauding him. That's what happened then. And obviously, like anyone else, you would be surprised to see a bloodless hand writing. And he called the Chaldean, he called all the wise men, he called the soothsayer, the seer, and said, please tell me, what does it say? The same thing is happening today. We're reading what Yah wrote with his own fingers and breathed with his own breath. But the Chaldeans, who comes in the disguise of pastor, they don't understand it. So we need a Daniel. We need somebody who understands it. Because what happened then in Babylon is going to happen again, and is happening in Mr. Babylon. And the people needs to know, go tell my people to come out of Babylon. Isn't that what Revelation 18:4 says? Come out. But here it is. The people believe that Babylon is a place. Babylon is a lifestyle. It was a place then, but it's a lifestyle. So we have to examine the lifestyle that was in the physical ancient Babylon, and that has been transported here in the society in which we live. And that's what we need to focus on. And so they couldn't interpret it. So they sent for a man called Daniel. Now, it is interesting that they did not invite Daniel to their party. But now trouble hits home, so they send for him. And the astrologers, there it is. It says, verse 7, the sovereign called loudly to bring in the astrologers and the Kasdim and the diviners and the palm readers and so on and so forth. And the people who interpret horoscope, they couldn't do anything because they were not trained to read the writings of heaven. They couldn't. So all the sovereign wise ones came, but they were unable to read the writings to make known its interpretation to the sovereign. He was only 41 years old, Belshazzar. But this night, he paid dearly with his life because he would not heed the word of Yah. And listen to what Daniel said to him in verse 22. And, well, let's read from verse 21. Because Daniel now was telling the story of what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was king. And he became so pompous. And he would speak with such authority. And perhaps you could say he trumpeted his attainments of what he achieved. Is not this the Babylon that I built? That's what he said. And it makes you want to think, isn't it, that so often you hear people say, make America great again. And you almost think that we're talking about a real kind of contemporary Babylon here. It's the same kind of attitude. And Belshazzar was, it says the kingdom, listen to me, the kingdom was rent from him, taken from him the moment The moment he spoke those words, is not this the Babylon that I built? And he was let out like to grass. He became a vegetarian forcefully to eat grass. Let me say this. I have watched and listened to the number of investigations that have taken place in America, special counsel, congressional and otherwise. And I believe that all of them collectively are guilty of one critical omission. Why do I say that? I tell you why. The current situation we have here in America is that the former president, and we must hold up the government to Yah in prayer and pray for them. We are told to do that. But perhaps some of you will recall on TV, Jim Baker's show and so on and so forth, so-called Christians, evangelicals, Pentecostalists, prophets came on TV, and some of them say that Yah had spoken to them and had told them that the president will have a second term. He would win. Now, put that thought in your mind and look at it in its context. If you were president, if you were king, and your wise men, your advisors, your Ahithophels came to you and said to you that Yah Almighty had given them vision and told them that you would win, what would you think? You're likely to conclude when you didn't win that the election must have been stolen. If not, then these are false prophets. These are the ones who are speaking what? With demons coming out of their mouths. That's what the word says. So I think that these prophets had not been held accountable for what they've done, to have led the president to believe. I don't know for how long, but that Yah has said he would win. And that's the situation we have here. In Babylon, they couldn't tell Nebuchadnezzar what was going on. It needed a wise prophet. The same thing happened at the time of Ahab. Ahab had 450 false prophets, and his wife had 850, and there was only one Elijah. One. And so what am I telling you? I'm telling you that in these last days, and I'm talking about the churches, groups, you're going to find more false prophets, more false teachers than you're going to find genuine ones. It's here in the Word. There's only one Daniel. And so Daniel said, your father, he was driven from the sons of men, verse 21, and his heart was made like the beast, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. He was given grass to eat like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the heavens, till he knew that the Most High, Elah, is ruler and reign over men, and he set out over it whomever he wishes. Verse 22, and you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all this. Did you hear that? You knew what your father went through. And you did not learn any lesson from that. But you now take the holy vessels from the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, and now you're drinking Budweiser out of them? You're drinking ale out of them? Those vessels that were crafted with holy hands? If that angered, so much, think of the true holy vessel, the people who are being fed falsehood, how it angers him. And he will deal with such pastors. He will. And so we have that problem. So we now need to go to Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 17. And one of the seven messengers who had the seven bowls came and spoke with me, saying to me, "Come, I shall show you the judgment of the great whore sitting on many waters." The whore is the false church. She sits on many waters, many people. She rules over many people, with whom the sovereigns, the kings of the earth, committed warring, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her whoring. Did you see that? We just read in Daniel 5 that Daniel and his men were drinking wine. We see it here in Revelation chapter 17. Who is feeding them? The church, the woman, the false woman. Let's read it again. With whom the sovereigns of the earth committed whoring, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk. What are they? Drunk, inebriated with the wine of her whoring. And he carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast covered with names of what? Blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Did you get that? Let me say it another way. There is a beast that has 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman, the church, the false church, is riding the state, is riding the beast. That's what's happening in Revelation. Meaning the state has become subservient to the woman. So when you hear people talk about evangelicals and so on and so forth, understand what you're watching. You're watching a merger of state and church. It's in the word. The woman is riding the beast. Are you with me? And the woman was dressed in purple. Remember last week we talked about purple. Purple is, or at least then, was an extremely expensive color because it was made by sea snails, and only the rich, the kings, could wear this. And the Romans, as I indicated last week, they had forbidden their citizens to wear purple under the threat of death. That's how expensive it was. You didn't wear purple. And so this woman is well dressed. Isn't the church rich, they say? Are you with me? She wearing purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearl, holding in her hand a golden cup filled with what? Abomination and the filthiness of her horn. So the cup that she had, that's what she pours in to their vessels. Upon her forehead, a name written, scarlet, Babel the Great. Babel the Great. Mother of what? Harlot. Now, we need to say this again. We've said it before, but we need to say it again. Today, what we have denominations. One person will say, well, I'm a Baptist. Another say, I'm a Episcopalian. I'm a Jehovah's Witness. Another say, I'm a Wesleyan. Another say, but I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. And another will say, well, I'm just a Catholic. Denominations. There is one denomination, one body. We find in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 23, the General Assembly, meaning that all these denominations, or so-called, they are supposed to be members of the body, not a church within themselves. Let me say it another way. Let's say, for example, you have a problem and you went to the doctor and it was with your foot or your hand. Would you externalize the problem and say, oh, this is a hand? Would you not relate the hand to your body? Because the hand is part of your body, is it not? My point is that these denominations are part of the body of Yeshua. But they have created their own creeds. So they become a church all by themselves. No, that's not what the word teaches. So when you hear a people say, or the angel say, come out of her, my people, Revelation 18:4, they think it is telling you to come out of one denomination and go into another denomination. No, it's come out of error and go into church, because there's one. The body is one. There's one head and one body. So this foolishness that you're a Wesleyan and you're a C of E, it really is, what's the word here? It is foolish. Why is it foolish? Now, for example, we often boast that we're Africans, we know, and that's our heritage. So when did I become Anglo-Saxon? That's what Church of England is. And perhaps we could remind ourselves that the king wanted a divorce, remember? And the Pope would not give him a divorce, so he decided to start the church. It's on that basis that the church decided to be formed. And we speak of another, will say, I'm a Lutheran. This book that we read from this morning, Revelation chapter, various chapters, Martin Luther, the great reformer, what did he say? He said he shouldn't be in the canon. He said that it is a farrago of baseless heresies. Whereas Yeshua is speaking to John and tells John, make sure you take dictation and write down what I'm saying to you and take it to the 7 churches. Now, when he says 7 churches, it's talking about 7 different eras of the one church. He only has one flock. So we need to understand that. So we must talk now of Revelation chapter 14. We're spending time in Revelation because I think it's the consummate book, and we need to understand it. Revelation 14, it says, and I looked and saw a Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice out of heaven, like the voice of many waters, with a loud voice and thunder, and I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps. And they sang a renewed song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and the elders, and no one was able to learn the song. Are you with me? Understand what's happening here. Just like what we call the Negro spiritual. Nobody could sing those songs in the days that they were coined because those songs were born out of experience. It's their experience. Oh, yes, we've heard other people sing them, but they did not have that experience. Swing low, sweet chariot. Angels are coming forth to carry me home. Sister Will sang this morning, wade in the water. That's what Cyrus did and his army. They wade in the water of the Euphrates and then entered into Babylon and captured it. We wade in the water. It's here. It's in the word. And so they sang a song that no man could number. This is the group called the Remnant. And we cannot pre-select ourselves and say we're the remnant when we have not had the experience. It's foolish. Is it not? It's like saying I'm, Harriet Tubman. And I've not had that underground experience. There's some of us, we won't even sit, like Rosa Parks. We're quick to get up and give up our seats to other people. And what if Rosa Parks had not stood up that day and held her ground and said, I'm not going to the back of the bus? You probably would not have heard of Dr. King, would you? You would not have heard. And what if Marcus Garvey had not come to visit America and told all of them about Africa and the Black Star Line? What would have happened to them? Because they're all Garveyites. All of them. And if we may talk about the unknown factor, Malcolm X. Had Mohammed not gone to prison to visit him, what would have America, Black history be like today? We talk about our history, but it didn't start in America. It started in the Word. We go back all the way to Genesis. We see Nimrod from Cush, son of Ham, was a king of all the world at that time. Even when Abraham lived, Abraham's father worked for Nimrod. The word tells us that. And so the angel here is saying, come with me to verse 6. And I saw another messenger flying in the midst of heaven. Remember, there are three heavens. There's the first heaven where Yah lives. Well, the top heaven, that's the heavens of heaven, and the mid-heaven where the angels are fighting, and the atmospheric heaven. So he's telling you, and I saw another heaven flying in mid-heaven. So when he says mid-heaven, you know this is where the fighting is. This is where Michael is fighting with his angel. Holding what? The everlasting, what? Good news. To announce to those who are dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear Elohim and give him glory. Esteem him, because the hour of his judgment has come. So the first angel is saying, give Yah glory. Don't miss that one. Give him glory. The hour has now come. Why? The hour has come. We see the Euphrates drying up. We see men speaking like demons. Cokobeh is coming out of their mouth. Even in the courtroom, we see that. We see it. So he's saying, now is the time to give him glory. And another messenger followed saying, Babylon is fallen. So watch the sequence. Watch the trajectory. After the message to give glory to Yah, if you don't heed that one, the next message, Babylon is fallen. Don't let Babylon fall with you in there. because you're told to get out. So Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all the nations drink of the wine, the false teaching, of the wrath of her whoring. She's a prostitute. That's what the word says. Can you imagine? You go into church and you hear that it's a prostitute. What would you do? Well, the word is saying many are doing that. And the third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark upon the forehead or upon his hand, he shall drink the wine of, you really love wine? Well, here it is, the wine of Yah's wrath. Wow. Which is poured out undiluted into the cup of his wrath, and he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the set apart messenger and before the Lamb. So understand, when you hear the message saying, fear Yah, you do so because Babylon is going to fall with you. Why? Because you've taken the mark of the beast. So let's go back to chapter 16 of Revelation. And I saw coming out of the mouths of the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet 3 unclean spirits as frog, for they are spirits of demons, doing signs which go out to the sufferings of the entire world, to gather them to the battle of Armageddon. See, I am coming as a thief. Blessed is he who, staying awake and guarding his garments, lest he talk, he walk naked, and they see his shame. Now, you have preachers, they tell you that when the Messiah is coming, he's coming like a thief in the night. Right? Is that what you hear? And they preach that. So come with me to Revelation chapter 3. Revelation chapter 3. And the word here says, and to the messenger, or to the angel of the assembly of Sardis write, he who has the 7 spirits of Elohim and the 7 stars says this, I know your works, that you have a name. Did you hear that? Sardis as a name, that you are alive, but you're dead. Wake up and strengthen what remains and is about to die, for I have not found your works complete before Elohim. Remember then how you have received and heard, and watch and repent. If then you do not wake up, I shall come unto you as a thief. Did you get that? He's coming to the dead church as a thief, not to the live church. So when you hear pastors say, oh, you know, he's coming as a thief in the night. No, he's coming as a thief in the night to the dead church. And you say, really? I say, come with me to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Because all the questions we have are answered in the word. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Now, brethren, now, brothers, as to the times and the season, you do not need to be written to. Paul is writing here. 1 Thessalonians 5. For you yourself know very well that the day of Yah come as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then suddenly destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brothers, are not in darkness. You're not in a dead church. so that this day shall overtake you as a thief. It's not going to happen if you're in the light. It only happens to the dead church. For you are all sons of light. Verse 5. And sons of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. So the pastor ought to tell you that when Yeshua comes and he's coming as a thief in the night, it's only for the dead church that's sleeping. And that's why you must now join me in Matthew 25. Matthew 25, and we're going to close in a minute. It says that the kingdom is likened to what? Verse 31, and when the Son of Man comes in his esteem, and all the set apart messengers with him, then he shall sit on his throne of his esteem, and all the nations shall gather before him, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. See the separation? Sheep and goat. Then the sovereign shall say to those on his right hand, Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous shall answer him, When did we do this? It's a fair question. He said, The least you do unto one of these, you did it unto me. But then, the goats now. You know, it's interesting that when you listen to basketball and football debates nowadays, one of the foremost of the question is they're asking, well, who is the GOAT? Who is the greatest of all time? Well, in here, the GOAT mean those who are not saved. That's what he's saying. And they ask him, they said, did we not do this? He said, depart from me. I never knew you. Go away from me, accursed one, in the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his messenger. And if the fire is prepared for the devil, what are you humans doing in it? Simple, because people were not obedient. So let's just bring this thing together now and present to you what the remnant looks like. We started out with Revelation chapter 16 that tells us that in the last days, Cokobeh is going to be coming out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. And we identified who those people are. And they will be largely responsible for the people in terms of the deceptions in the church. Because when Yeshua said, take heed that you're not deceived, he wasn't talking about the external world. He's talking about deception coming from false teachers. He says, many will come in my name, and they will teach you all manner of things. But you need to have that discerning spirit to know what is true. Pilate looked at him on the day he was crucified and saw the embodiment of truth and still asked the question, what is truth? Many of us are washing our hands just like Pilate, washing our hands of truth. And so we see that. We notice that the Euphrates River is drying up, so the frogs are coming out. And the interesting thing is we need to know, we are living between the sixth and the seventh seal. The next seal is the coming of Yeshua. There are 7 seals, and we're under the 6th seal where the frogs are coming out. It's quite frightening. So the next seal is when the skies will be all ablaze in its radiant form. And Yeshua will come through, at which time it will be too late for the unsaved to be saved. Now, when you hear mercy plead, it's time to give your soul in safekeeping. And so we want to make that clear, because Babylon is fallen. And it's no good sitting pretty in your church saying you're the remnant. Revelation 12 and verse 17 says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. Who was he wroth with? Remember, we said the woman is a church. But he's not wroth with all the church. He's wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. You see who the woman, the remnant looks like? Which keep the commandments of Yah and have the testimony of Yeshua. You must keep the commandment, including the feast days, and have the testimony of Yeshua. Well, you ask the question, what then is the testimony of Yeshua? That's a fair question. I'm glad you asked. Come with me to Revelation 19:10. I fell, this is John speaking, and I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said to me, see thou do it not. I am the fellow servant and of the brethren that have the testimony of Yeshua. Worship Yah, and the testimony of Yeshua is the spirit of prophecy. What does that mean? It means that when you have the gift of the prophecy, you're able to understand the prophecies, the hermeneutics, and you'll be able to share that with people. And if you don't have that in your church and you don't have a command in people's church, keep looking. He said the identifying indicia, the identifying marks of Yah's people at the end of time are those who keep the commandments and have the testimony of Yeshua. Simple. So in Revelation 14, 4 and 5, we read this. These are they, John says, I see a group of people. And he begins to describe the group of people. And you need to tell me if when you look in your church, if you see anybody looks like that. And if they don't, keep looking. These are they which were not defiled with women. No other church defiled them. For they are virgins. They are they which follow the Lamb, that's Yeshua, whichever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruit unto Yah and to the Lamb, and in their mouth was found no guile. Did you hear that? We just read in Revelation 16 that what's coming out of the mouth of the dragon and of the beast and of the false prophet is demons. Words. He says, these people, no guile. They don't tell lies. For they are without fault before the throne of Yah. It doesn't matter what other people say about them. It's how they are perceived by Yah. You know, when we're looking job, we write all kinds of things on our resume, isn't it? And we look good by way of our resume. Oh, yes, we look good. But if your resume is not written by Yah, it's not written. And so now, as we are defining what the remnants looks like, you have a better idea as to whether or not the place where you are and where you worship, whether there is any inkling, even tacitly, looks like this. If you don't, hear what the agent said in Revelation 18. Come with me to 22 and verse 23. Revelation 18. Because if you can't find this, this is what the angel said. And the voice, well, Revelation 18:4 says, come out of her, my people. Come out. And people ask the question, well, where do I go? My question was, where did the disciples go? When Yeshua walked out of the temple and said, behold, your house is left unto you desolate. Where did they go? Where did Lot go? Where did Abraham go? Did they not all worship in their house? Remember, there's only one temple in Jerusalem. One. And the people, those who were living far apart, they only attended 3 times a year. So where did they worship? In their homes. Revelation 18, 22, 23. And the voice of harpers and musicians and pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. Did you hear that? It's talking about the church. And no craftsman of whatever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of the candle. Remember in Revelation chapter 7, we learn, Revelation chapter 1, 2, and 3, we learn that the light there, the candlestick, are the churches, the 7 churches, the 7 eras, 7 periods of time. So the light, he said, it's going to go out. The candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom. Who is the bridegroom? Yeshua. He said, you're not going to hear him at all. Why? And the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For the merchants of the great men of the earth, for the sorcerers are the nations deceived. Did you hear that? He says the sorcerers are the people who are going to deceive the people at the end time. Who are the sorcerers? When you look at the Greek, you know who sorcerers are? Pharmakia, the scientists. The people who make, these drugs. In some Bible it says drugs. These are the people who are going to deceive. They are going to be the great men. Can you not see that happening even as we look? Take this and take that. He says, these pharmakia, these sorcerers, are the ones who are going to be the great men in the earth at this time when the Euphrates River is drying up and you hear the lies and the demons coming out of the people's mouths. That's what he says. Are you with me? So they're leading you into a time that Revelation 13 says that you will not be able to buy or sell unless you have the mark of the beast. Wow. If that doesn't frighten you, you're an absolutely calm person. So let's just bear in mind that Babylon is indeed fallen. Fallen, it is fallen. And we need to get out like Lot did with speed, because we see that the frogs have come up out of the pond. And sometimes these politicians, they speak without even understanding what they speak, because you've heard the statement that I am going to Washington to drain the what? The swamp. But we studied this morning that frogs come out of swamp. That's where they come from. That's where they live. And how does a nation, how does a kingdom speak to his people? Through its policies. The Bible says much of what you're going to be hearing from here on, it's demonic. Demonic. And so we've just got to be sure that, we stay in the Word. Stay in the Word. This two-edged sword that cuts to the quick. Because I know that people don't really like something that is too sharp. They would rather their ears be tickled. But that's not what we want. We want to make sure that we're on the right side. So, as I close, I say to you, even as the psalmist says, Psalm 34, 11 and to 14, come ye children, hearken unto me. I will teach you the fear of Yah. What man is he that desireth life and loveth many days that he may see? Keep thy tongue from speaking evil, and thy lips from speaking vile. Depart from evil. Do good. Seek peace and pursue it. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.